On today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, I have Candace Cooper with me from Locked On ACC to preview Virginia Tech, Texas, as well as a whole lot more. Longhorn Nation, it's Friday.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Longhorn Nation, I have a treat for you all today. One of the best in the business is with me, the lovely Candace Cooper, host of Locked On ACC. Once again, Candace, what's going on? Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I don't know if they'll think I'll be as sweet once they hear my thoughts on this NCAA matchup, but we'll try. I'll try and make it good as it can be.
Hey, as long as you're being honest, for sure.
I'm
So let's
keep it a band.
Okay, all right. So let's get right into it. Texas drew a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. They are facing off against a red hot 11th seeded Virginia Tech Hokies team. So Candace, this Virginia Tech team is 13-2 in their last 15 games. What makes this Virginia Tech team so tough?
Man, they've got so much veteran leadership. I think they're coached really well by Coach Mike Beard. And more importantly than that, they just have nothing to lose. And anyone playing with house money is always someone you got to be scared of, right? Nobody thought they would be here. Nobody thought they would be ACC champions. Nobody believed that. And then you write them off. They started season 2-7. You said, all right, it's been cool. We thought y'all would be a little bit better, but it's not really panning out. We're just going to move on. And slowly but surely, they bounced, game by game, put themselves in position to be successful. And they're going into this tournament with that kind of confidence. And that's scary.
Definitely. No, they're really hot right now. And this is a team that beat North Carolina, beat Duke to win the ACC tournament. So they're on fire right now. Texas is going to have their hands full tomorrow or today when they face off against the Virginia Tech Hokies. And so I think the keys for Texas to win this game is they're going to have to continue to defend. They've been one of the best defensive teams in the country all year, the best statistical defensive team in the Big 12. They're going to have to keep Virginia Tech off the three-point line where they're really good at shooting the three, and hold them on the offensive end, hold them down on the offensive end. And then offensively for the Texas Longhorns, they're going to have to be able to score, not have the scoring droughts that we've seen from them all season. And then, be able to have that one player, Seth Greenberg from ESPN, I thought he said it the best, that Texas has a collection of good players, but when it comes down to the end of the game and you need that one player to go get a bucket, I'm not sure if they have that. So whether it's Timmy Allen or Marcus Carr, somebody is going to be able to, at the end of the game, when it's close, when the money's on the line, when your season potentially could end, who is going to take over on the offensive end and be able to go get a bucket? So what do you think are the keys for Virginia Tech to beat this Longhorns team that is higher seeded than them?
That's such a good question. Like, I really feel as if it lives and breathes and dies between Hunter Couture and what's his name, Storm Murphy. Those are two guys that aren't on paper the best. They're not the most talented, but they have the heart, right? And I think if you play with heart, you obviously have opportunity to be in games. And then you see with their bigs, guard play. Storm Murphy, Hunter Couture, they're going to have to go off. I don't think Hunter Couture is going to have a 30-point game every time he hits the court, but he's going to have to be more consistent than he's been all season. Then you want to talk about the bigs, right? You got Aluma, you've got Justin Mutz. I think those two guys are going to have to be fed often, and they're going to have to capitalize when they have their moments in the paint. When it comes to defense, can you get those and one opportunities, and can you just really frustrate those guys down the floor? And I also think overall, you have to just keep that confidence. Number 3 for them is confidence. If they can just feel as if they are in a game with a team like Texas, with a name brand and a whole, entity that is the Longhorns, why not them? They took down a Duke team, right? Like, they can beat a Texas team. Nobody feels you shouldn't be counting Virginia Tech out. And I think that's what's going to help them be successful when they play the Longhorns today.
Definitely. And, there was some talk, the way that they, you might get mad at me for saying this, the way that they kind of dismantled the North Carolina Tar Heels, and then they beat Duke in the ACC tournament. A lot of people felt that Virginia Tech may have been underseeded at 11. Do you think that that's true? Or do you think there's
You
any credence to
know,
that?
Yeah, I think when you look at the North Carolina Virginia Tech matchup, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Carolina beat Virginia Tech twice during the regular season, and then they had just come off a very gaudy win against Virginia. I think they were feeling a little big for their britches. This also been a North Carolina team that's been inconsistent all season. So there's no reason where you could have thought to yourself, yes, this North Carolina team's gonna roll. I was like, it's about time to get popped in the mouth. I was thankfully glad that Virginia Tech did it early. We didn't have to see a Carolina Duke rematch. And so the fact that, Virginia Tech beat them and beat them so handedly, I felt like they were just the team to do so. I don't think they were underseeded because the record showed what we've seen on the ACC side is just a very inconsistent team that had all the pieces together. They just couldn't put it, to fit. And so maybe in that regard, you're like, yes, they, were underrated, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you got to play the game.
Yeah, and as we've seen, I think it's now 6, 7 straight years where 11 seed has beaten a 6 seed. We saw it yesterday with Michigan, a 6 seed beating or 11 seed beating Colorado State in a 6 seed. So Iowa losing to Richmond in the 5-12 matchup. So once you get into the dance, it really doesn't matter. Once you get on the court, you throw the seedings away, and the best players, go out there and they make plays to win the game. All right, so Locked On ACC, nobody better to answer this question. Texas, Virginia Tech, 6-11 matchup. Who wins and why?
Virginia Tech is taking this game because Virginia Tech is on a roll. The heat is all about them right now, and they just can't be stopped. I personally feel like Texas is a very strong team, but as you mentioned, doesn't have that finisher, doesn't have that leader that's going to step up, and that's what Virginia Tech has between a freshman like Padula or Storm Murphy. You just have guys that have nothing to lose. Everyone's told them their whole life that they were number 2, that they were JV, right? When it comes to like the elite level people, so they're like, all right, bet. And so when you see a team like Texas, let's knock them off. So I really just feel like Virginia Tech has all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, that's a big thing coming into this tournament hot with confidence, beating a Duke team like that. And on the opposite end, Texas isn't coming in with a lot of momentum. They lost, their last couple of regular season games, and then you lose in the first round of the tournament where you have a 20-point lead against TCU, a team you should beat in the Big 12 tournament, and you blow a 20-point lead and lose to TCU in that manner, 65-60. And we know that, in the tournament, in the NCAA tournament, that higher seed, we kind of saw with Iowa and Richmond, that higher seed has, so much more pressure on them to win the game, where Virginia Tech is kind of playing with house money. So I think if the game is close and, they have to rely on one person to go get a bucket or something, and there's more pressure on them, I think Virginia Tech has a really good chance to win this game. I'm not going to come on here on Locked On Longhorns and say that Virginia Tech is going to win. I'm yelling hook 'em until I can't no more. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, but for all the reasons that Candace just said, Virginia Tech has a really good chance to win this game. But nonetheless, it's going to be a really good matchup today between the Longhorns and the Virginia Tech Hokies in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Coming up next, we talk about a former Longhorn coach and Shaka Smart and what Candace Cooper's North Carolina Tar Heels did to him, plus just an outlook on the ACC in this tournament as well. But first, a word from our sponsors. I love March Madness and I love those brackets, but I can't remember the last time I actually went deep or won any money. Stat Heroes NCAA single game pick'ems pits the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from those handicappers that always seem to have the advantage. Start focusing on the players you know best with a gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props. In addition to their pick'em games, they also have dozens of lineups you can comb through to take on head-to-head. They simply post sets of players for you to take on with the set of players you choose. Stat Hero is the easiest and fastest way to get your sports action fix. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit. stathero.com/lockedon, promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Candace. So have you've been putting any money on these games? Have you had any success with anything, in the tournament so far?
I did my part during football season. I learned my lesson. So I've been chilling. But I think that as stuff ramps up, maybe when we get to the closer Final Four matchups and things like that, I'll stick my neck out there again.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't like being broke.
okay. I definitely feel that. I've been hot as of late,
Okay.
but the hotter you get, sometimes you can get burnt, So
Sure, you
I
ain't
didn't
gotta tell
stop.
me.
So I might need to stop while I'm ahead. Okay, so
Yeah.
former Longhorns head coach did not have the success at the 40 acres that people would hope after the Rick Barnes era. He was never able to win an NCAA tournament game in Austin with the Texas Longhorns. And people thought that yesterday he might be able to reverse that trend, but he did not, as the North Carolina Tar Heels dominated former Longhorns coach Shaka Smart and Marquette in that game. So, Candace, what do you think were the keys to North Carolina just getting such a dominant win over former Longhorns coach Shaka Smart and Marquette?
Yeah, and listen, Shaka Smart has definitely had North Carolina's number. Marquette beat UNC last season in the regular season when they actually scheduled them for whatever reason. They're like, yeah, let's put another game on the docket. Sure, because it's going to be an easy win, except it wasn't, and they lost, but that's fine. I think it was a little bit of payback there in terms of just wanting to dial up and make sure they beat a Marquette team. But you also had new guys like Brady Manick coming in and just delivering and being that veteran leader that Carolina so desperately needs. So I think it was, veteran leadership from him and just rolling and being the perfect pair to Armando Bacot. You also saw Caleb Love go off for 23 points, get an opportunity to sit and rest his legs, which normally we don't see. He's playing to the bitter end. Going off for 23 points, and that team just goes, lives and dies by him. Guard play is so important, we know, in this NCAA tournament. It's essential to have someone who can either go to the rock or be able to dish it. Caleb Love, thankfully, was able to do that today. And then third, I think this is just a team that's firing from all cylinders. They were probably feeling bad about that Virginia Tech loss, had a little bit of humble pie, got a little bit of, okay, you're not just going to it's no gimmies at this point. Everybody's playing hard. There's no games that are just going to be blown out the water, except maybe this Marquette one. But still, at first glance, you thought when it was 8-7, it could have been a close one. And I was like, oh, Lord, I'm about to have a heart attack. Either way it goes, I think Carolina just got that little notch of confidence, but they cannot rest because they know they have a big one coming up on Saturday against Baylor.
Definitely. This is a Baylor team that beat Texas twice. This season, Texas was not able to get a win against them. And you talk about North Carolina, this is a team that's really talented and probably one of the more underrated 9 seeds. They didn't have the season that they were hoping for. They capped it off in the regular season by spoiling Coach K's party at Cameron Indoor. But definitely a really dangerous 9 seed with a lot of talent and a team that could give Baylor a lot of problems tomorrow in that matchup. So now this is 6 straight NCAA tournaments where Shaka Smart has failed to win a game in the first round. I know that's sad, and I know that Longhorns fans are hearing that or probably glad that he's out the door. So do you think that's cause for concern? We saw him with the Final Four run and just hasn't been able to recapture that magic since.
Yeah, I think what people just do not understand about all of this is it just is magic. Like there's a reason why March is called madness for a reason. You have to strike lightning at the right time. Your team has to get hot at the right moment. And it's just sheer matchups. Like you just get pinned. It's a math puzzle piece. And I suck at math for one. But when you do all those different little who can go up against who, some days you just get, the goose and some days the goose gets you. And I think that's what VCU had a great opportunity to make the name for themselves. And of course you become the hot name. And not to, giving more credit to the coach than you do to the players. And I think Shaka, the Shaka Smart, the name is great and the brand and what he can do. Failed at Texas. And then it's like, okay, maybe we just take a step back and we go to a place like Marquette, which, he has had some success, but sometimes the stage gets too big. And I don't think people really understand how big the Texas stage is and how much pressure it is to play or coach or work under or be a part of the Longhorn Nation. Like they do not play. Like Carolina people be crazy about, basketball, but the way I've seen Texas be crazy about all athletics is just on another notch.
No, definitely. I mean, Chris Beard has came in his first year and done things we haven't seen since the Rick Barnes era. And every day I get on Twitter and there's somebody, talking about, Chris Beard, is he really the right coach and all of this and all of that. So you're right. It's just tough to win in this business period. And hopefully Shaka Smart can get it turned around at Marquette. So, Candace, with you being the host of Locked On ACC, we have some really interesting ACC teams in the tournament. Of course, Duke, led by Paulo Banchero and Coach Cage last year as the coach. We saw a Miami team that took Duke to the wire in the ACC tournament. We've talked about Virginia Tech. We've talked about North Carolina, Notre Dame. I may be missing somebody else. So how do you see these ACC teams faring in the NCAA tournament this year?
It's so great you asked that. I just had a show, so all of this is fresh on my brain, and I'm literally saying we decided that all 5 we hope make it out of this weekend, but if they can't, we think it's going to be a strong 3. So we're assuming that Duke makes it out of the weekend. We think that Notre Dame is going to upset Alabama and make it out of the weekend, and we really hope and pray that North Carolina can do it. But I'm a little hesitant on thinking they can beat Baylor and Fort Worth. That's just but I'm also happy. My Super Bowl was them knocking off Coach K's farewell tour, so they don't have to win another game to me. I think that Miami is going to beat USC, but they can be fraudulent at times too. So I don't want to give too much hopes and credence to them. But then I say, that Virginia Tech matchup. So Virginia Tech, Duke, and I would say Notre Dame are probably my 3 teams that are definitely going to make it out of this weekend.
No, for sure. So Miami is interesting. I really like the way that they played against Duke. I think they have a couple, 2 or 3 players that can go out there and get a bucket when you need to. Just what I'm saying, a really cohesive team for sure. So I'm looking at my bracket. I don't want to spoil it too much. We'll talk about this in the next segment. But I actually have them beating not only USC, but I have them knocking off Auburn in the round of 32 after that. And, Auburn is one of those teams where, I was saying that they could win the whole thing or they could lose in the second round. Like, they're so talented, but they play just dumb basketball sometimes. They don't get Jabari Smith the ball enough. For him to be a top 3 pick consensus in the draft, it's like they, keep the ball away from him and they can't make threes and anything like that. So Miami definitely can make some noise. We saw Notre Dame against Rutgers. It's going to be one of the best games in the tournament this year, going to double overtime. So, the ACC has some good teams and definitely could make some noise in this NCAA tournament for sure. So coming up next, Candace and I will tell you how we actually have the bracket shaking out, who we think is going to win this year's NCAA tournament. But of course, a word from our sponsors. First, if you're hungry like I am, make sure you try Built Bar. They are fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar. They're a treat covered in 100% real chocolate, flavors like yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, and banana cream pie. So good. Once again, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. At Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. It's that time of the year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sport wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Candace, so I'm looking at my bracket that I got filled out right here, and I've been teasing Longhorn Nation all week, telling them I would let them know where I had this bracket going. And so now it is time. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them know, and then you can let us know where you disagree with me and who you have going in your bracket. So I'm gonna skip right to the Sweet 16, and the Sweet 16 in the West region. I have, make sure I got this right. Okay, so I have make sure I had this right. Okay, so I got Gonzaga and Arkansas, and then I got Texas Tech and Duke. I got Gonzaga beating Arkansas, and I got Texas Tech beating Duke. My Elite Eight, I got Texas Tech beating Gonzaga to make it to the Final Four. So I got Texas Tech coming out of the West.
Okay.
In the East, I got Baylor and UCLA and Purdue and Kentucky. I got UCLA beating Baylor and Kentucky beating Purdue, with UCLA beating Kentucky to get to the Final Four. So I got Texas Tech and UCLA right now. Then I got Arizona and U of H in the South. And then I got Tennessee and Villanova. I got Arizona beating U of H and Tennessee beating Villanova, with Arizona beating Tennessee to get to the Final Four. And then in the Midwest, I had Kansas and Iowa, so that's already messed up. But I had Kansas winning that anyway to get to the Elite Eight. That had Wisconsin. I said I had Miami beating Auburn. I got Auburn on here actually. Okay, so Wisconsin, but I had Wisconsin beating Auburn, and then Kansas beating Wisconsin to get to the Final Four. So my Final Four is Texas Tech, UCLA, Arizona, and Kansas. And then I have UCLA beating Texas Tech and Arizona beating Kansas. I have an all Pac-12 championship game with Arizona going against UCLA. And I'm taking the number 1 seeded Arizona Wildcats to win the NCAA tournament this year. That is my pick. I think they're probably just the most complete team from top to bottom. They're hitting on all cylinders right now, winning their conference tournament. They have players that can go get a bucket on the offensive end, but they're also balanced offensively that can defend. Everybody to have players that can defend 1 through 4. And so I just think they're the most complete team right now, one of the hottest teams right now. And I think they pull it off. So where do you disagree with me, and who do you have winning the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, so great bracket there. I have UCLA and in the finals. Actually, I have UCLA winning the whole thing. So love that.
Okay, I love that pick. I had them in the championship. We're thinking the same thing.
I'll have Gonzaga, UCLA, Auburn, and Tennessee. So I'm thinking that Tennessee is a team that probably should be ranked higher than they are, and could definitely catch fire. I liked what I saw out of their SEC tournament appearance. I think that they're just a team that if they get it together, they figure it out, they stop being knuckleheads, as well as Auburn. I think that they can be strong. I'm sad that I have no ACC teams in the Final Four, but I'm just being a realist here. I don't think that Duke is going to make it. I think they'll struggle against Michigan State. I think I have Michigan State in that round of 32, I believe. And so from what I've seen out of all of the ACC teams, it's let's just have fun, right? Let's just have a good time. The more that people that make it, the more opportunities I get to talk about it. But I would love to be, this is like the part of the season where I would love to be wrong. Like, I'm not a homer about anything. Of course, I would love Carolina to go the whole way, but again, a realist. So it's just one of those situations where our conference has had a down year. It's okay. At the end of the day, we still have 5 strong teams who they have a lot of storied energy behind them. They are, they're elite programs for a reason. So that you never know. So I'd rather be wrong, but I think I'm right about this. So UCLA, that would be the one who I think is going to take it all. I think, what's my guy's name? Jusang, is that his name?
Yeah, Johnny Jusang.
I think from what I saw from last season, like, you just don't go out like that. Like, I think that's some sort of chip that you don't want to end your career like that. So
yeah, UCLA is a great team. Of course, I have them in the championship game. Candace mentioned Johnny Juzang. You still got Tiger Campbell. You still got Jaquez. So they bring a lot of experience back from that Final Four team last year, a team that could have easily won the national championship. And I think they make a run this year. I just think they fall short to Arizona, but if they won it, I would not be surprised. Candace Cooper, thank you so much for coming on Locked On Longhorns, the daily number 1 source for all things Texas athletics. I know after hearing this podcast, they're going to be like, man, I want to hear a lot more from Candace Cooper. I want to see what she has going on. I want to read her work, so tell them where they can find it.
Yeah, no doubt. Unfortunately, I'm not a writer, just a host, so there's no work to be written. Except my tweets. You can follow me on Twitter at Candace Cooper. Like, you gotta let everyone has their strengths. And writing, I'm not gonna say it's not a strength, but I'm more of a blogger. I'm not necessarily like, let's talk about all these games and analysis and all that stuff. Cool, whatever. Love hosting though. YouTube, you can find me at Locked On ACC, on Twitter at Locked On ACC. You can subscribe, download wherever you get podcasts, and I have 5 great guys that I do a rotating show with every single day. So it's always a good time. Everyone has their different personalities and energies, and right now we're just excited about the tournament. We're talking about men and women, so shout out to our ladies, because our ACC women have been holding down the fort when it comes to basketball. So we love to get to talk about them. And then, of course, NFL draft is approaching, and we're going to talk about getting into the season and just how well some of our teams might do this fall.
Definitely all of that. So, Candace, thank you once again. Longhorn Nation, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On ACC to hear everything Candace Cooper has to say. And for my audio listeners, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Longhorns on YouTube for exclusive content. And, of course, to put a face behind the voice of your favorite podcast. Longhorn Nation, make sure you have a great weekend. And hopefully we're still in the NCAA tournament the next time you hear my voice. Peace.